Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program and the Interplanetary Chase. In the previous episode we deployed our Lathe copter, we went flying with it, we did a few experiments around Lathe and towards the end we built and successfully tested a brand new SSTO which is designed for delivering crew to the Kerbal Orbital Lab. Now you join us as we're making a couple of refinements to it, such as adding some air brakes, a drone core, redoing the engine pods, and as well as, you know, we already have some drone shoots which I did off camera. Now, speaking of crew, we actually have a new hire joining our space program, going by the name of Ivanka Kerbal Kerman. Requested by one of this series' long-time viewers, of course. Now, once again, if you would like a Kerbal to be added to our roster, please do feel free to add their name in the comments, followed by their profession, and I will try my best to accommodate. Now, as you can see, with regards to these engine pods, I want them to look a little bit neater. I want these twitch engines to be a little bit more in line rather than clipping into the control surfaces. And as you can see, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring them as central as I can without clipping into each other too much. They're putting a tiny little air intake here. And what that essentially does is it almost makes it look like it's, you know, those two engines have almost a boat tail design going on. And as you can see, I am quite pleased with how that's turned out. So, of course, just make sure that's all auto-strutted. Just make sure everything is as it should be. Time to choose our crew. So we'll have Jeb and Ivanka as our pilots eventually, once we do get around to doing that. So Ivanka and Jeb as the pilots for the crew for the Orbital Lab. We have Valentina, Bob, Bill, and I believe we'll leave it at that because we only need 3 crew members up there as it stands. Of course, once again, we are running a little low on our roster, so some more Kerbals would never be amiss. But regardless, as you can see, we are taking off with the SSTO. A little bit more of a natural ascent profile compared to our last format. We pulled up quite hard, I think it was like, what, 20 degrees, whereas this one we're just kind of letting it rest at around 10 degrees while we accelerate low within the atmosphere, which ultimately makes it easier for us once we get to the point of leaving the atmosphere, of course. So here we go, about 7 kilometers up, 600 meters per second. We're going to point prograde just to let the nose drop down, entering the hypersonic regions at 10 kilometers altitudes. 1.2 kilometers per second, we fire the atomic motors and start pulling up. And of course the jet engines are still alive, only just. They flame out, so we activate the twitch engines, the oxidizer engines, and of course from now it's just a matter of getting our apoapsis up as high as it can go and circularising. Now of course we have just run out of oxidizer with an apoapsis of 60 kilometers, so the atomic engines should be more than enough to bring that into space. Just going to point prograde once again, see if we can't bring our periapsis away from the negatives. And of course, so far so good. Apoapsis is coming up very quickly, so we need to point the nose upwards to fix this. And of course, given how efficient the atomic motors are, thankfully it is just a matter of time. So we'll pop the lights on, just for, you know, creature comforts, I suppose. Keeping in mind, of course, that the Kerbal Orbital Lab is in a 100 by 100 meter orbit. So obviously the test flight only took us to 70 by 70, or it was 75 in fact. But I don't doubt that we will be able to make it. So as you can see, we are getting close encounters. I'm not overly sure about this thing's ability to dock, so this will be a first, but even then, docking isn't strictly necessary because of course ultimately the crew could just kind of EVA and use their jetpacks to get nice and close. As you can see, I am just trying to kill our relative velocity to the target, although we are running a little bit low on fuel. We have 130-ish meters per second delta V fuel left in the atomic motors, and of course that's without considering the fact that we do also need to re-enter the atmosphere. I'm not overly concerned about not landing at the space centre because of course we have some pretty chunky wheels, and I think we can deal with an off-road landing, especially with the parachutes we have, of course. We actually have the small actual parachutes that you can put on the Mark 1 command pods, because of course those aren't radial parachutes. Actually, I think they might be. They are. They are the radial parachutes. What am I thinking? Because I previously put the small ones on the engine pods, but that was before we just redesigned them, wasn't it? So, my mistake. Now, speaking of mistakes, as you can see, we are actually out of fuel, and we're currently using monoprop to try and kill our relative velocity. Although, as a side effect of this, I don't think we'll have enough fuel to actually dock with the space station as intended. No bother, we'll just have to EVA our Kerbals, or at least the ones that we want to board the Orbital lab. As you can see, just coming in now. So I believe this is Valentina, who will be getting in the pilot module. And then Bob, I believe, is our scientist, who will be getting on board the mobile lab. And then last but not least, we have Bill, our engineer, who will go in the living quarters and will be called on as and when needed. As he's just coasting up to the station now. And getting on board, and that's it. So, time to point retrograde to our orbit and fire forwards using what little monopropellant we have in order to bring our periapsis hopefully into the atmosphere and to allow us to re-enter and ideally ultimately not get stuck in low Kerbal orbit, right? I mean, I'm sure there's worse places to be, but you know, still not ideal, is it? And we are now out of monopropellant. No problem. We have a couple more air brakes than we did last time, so of course we will be able to slow down a bit more effectively. We're going to keep a very high angle of attack to essentially use the underside of the aircraft as an air brake as well. As you can see, we are slowing down very slowly, but it is enough to bring our periapsis down to essentially underground, theoretically. So we are basically captured in the atmosphere now. And as you can see, we do have some heating going on in the cockpit once again, but that will go away very soon. Only a tiny bit of the plasma effects because, well, of course, we are so slow at this point. Pull the air brakes in and dive down, bit more plasma, and that's it. So, of course, all we need to do now, air brakes out, back in the subsonic regions, landing gears down, lights on. Pull the brakes again, and deploy the parachutes. And we are landed. So we're going to recover that, and that is mission accomplished. Wonderful. So, no signs, because of course we didn't do any experiments, but that's absolutely fine. Ivanka and Jeb back, ready for the next assignments. We do have some ribbons as well, both Ivanka Kerbal and Jebediah. So of course Ivanka has the landing on Kerbin ribbon, the G-Force 12 ribbon, the Kerbin Orbit ribbon, and the Mach 3 ribbon, and Jebediah also has the G-Force 12 ribbon, keeping in mind that was Ivanka's first flight with the space program, so not too bad, as of course we warp to sunrise, getting ready for a nice new day. Now, back to the hangar. We're building yet another jet. This isn't an SSTO. What I want to do is I actually want to go to the North Pole, because yes, we've been before, however, our science has progressed a little bit. We have a few more available experiments now, and we haven't done any of the breaking ground experiments yet. So I think it's about time that we establish a kind of science, not base, but site. And what better place, obviously, in the North Pole, seeing as we're hardly ever there. So, of course, very interesting design we're going for here. We're going for forward swept wings. Because I believe that encourages more control. That is, of course, if you can deal with the problems that it brings with structural integrity. But with auto-strut, that's not a problem. Now, time to build the tail. I want to build almost like a kind of boxy tail around the turbo ramjet engine. Just to kind of, I don't know, give it a bit of a futuristic vibe. And obviously, the bigger tail you have on aircraft with forward swept wings, the more control authority you have, because the biggest issue that forward swept wings aircraft usually have is that when they stall, it's near impossible to regain control, because of course the first thing that will theoretically get lift back is the tip of the wing, which is very, very far in front. And of course, that's just going to, point your nose up, increase your angle of attack, and stall the wing out before you can ultimately regain control. I think that's how it works. I might be wrong. That's very much not modelled in Kerbal Space Program, or at least it's not in vanilla. Maybe if you use something like Ferrum Aerospace, then you might be onto something. But regardless, with this kind of trailing tail, I think that shouldn't be a concern. As of course, we're just adding our control surfaces now. I think I didn't strut any of the tail, but that's fine because we have rigid attachment and auto strut enabled as well, so that's all good. Oscar B fuel tanks. Reason being is because I want to almost cover the wing tips towards the tail, and of course it would be a good little place to put some landing gear too, I think. So obviously batteries, reaction wheels, just little bits and bobs to assist us with just flight control and stability. Wonderful. Strut up this bottom bit here. Fuel lines as well, going into the main fuselage. I'm thinking, where can I put some solar panels? Because as it stands, we don't actually have any power generation, and ultimately I do find that nice little place on the wings. Advanced canards, possibly. I'm wondering where we can put these, because once again, the more pitch authority we have with forward swept wings, the better. I don't think the advanced canards will work unless we have a longer body, because of course then they won't actually touch the wings. I'm trying to find some good landing gear for this. I do ultimately decide on the 2 small wheels and then a medium one at the front. Parachutes to assist us with when we're landing. I'm not particularly concerned about the lack of roll we might have on the ground, because of course the North Pole is completely flat, so assuming we do this properly with no side slip or inertia going on, then it won't be a problem. Antenna, of course. Then we're just having a look as to where we can put our experiments. And just filling our cargo with some experiments and all the breaking ground bits that we need. And we do ultimately come back and redesign this thing a little bit later on, because I did have to run off very quickly as I had some thoughts as to what else we might need. So maybe a crew cabin for a scientist and engineer. I'm not sure if that's strictly necessary for the breaking ground experiments, but seeing as I've never done these before, I want this mission to work. Of course, we had to reposition the wings, which meant we had to rejig the tail ever so slightly, but that's not a problem. Adding some more wings to the forward swept one to kind of blend it in with the fuselage a little bit. And because we've made the body longer, this means we can use the advanced canards. Just rejigging our crew, we need pilot, scientist and an engineer. And of course, let's not forget the fact that we might need some cargo at the bottom of the aircraft as well. Reason being is because our Kerbals won't be able to put these in their inventory if they've got the jetpacks and I think their fuel canisters on them. I'm not quite sure what they are, but of course we need both to be reachable, so we're going to put a cargo box at the bottom of the aircraft. And of course we have Ivanka, Albert and Lido, our crew, and we are ready to go. So I'm hoping that this should be a very, very quick flight, once again owing to the turbo ramjet, the absolutely massive inline intake we have towards the tail as we break Mach there, which kind of proves our point. And once again the forward swept wings are doing us absolute wonders here. As we actually flame out the engine by going very, very high up at almost 1 kilometre per second. But of course, fuel efficiency, speed, what's not to love? And obviously at that angle of attack we were actually losing speed, so we might need to dive down into the atmosphere again as we are smashing our way through those plasma effects. We are going super, super fast. But of course we are actually almost at the poles already, or at least the North Pole. So we're just going to disable the engine and dive down beneath the clouds. And look at this! Very pretty. It's kind of a bit grey at the poles, so of course we can't really see where we're going. Going to climb back up. As you can see, we're almost out of fuel because we dove down so quick. So brakes out, gears out, parachutes deployed, and we have landed. Wonderful. So we're going to deploy the ladders. Get Ivanka out first. Reason being is because the the Mark 1 crew cabin is actually... you can't leave it because the wings are in the way. So what we can do is, as you can see, we can just transfer the crew to the empty Mark 1 cockpit and then get them out, which seems to work. So let's get a selfie, you guys. There we go. Lovely stuff. Now, I think it's about time we try and figure out how the breaking ground experiments work, as, of course, we deploy a flag just to celebrate the occasion, as we call this, for breaking ice sites. EVA report, apparently we're in the air when we jumped. That's one hell of a way to cheese that, I suppose. No control over the aircraft because we did not put a drone core, but no problem. Now I think Lido, as our engineer, I think this is how it works. Lido will be able to put her bits and bobs away, and then of course put the experiments in her inventory and place them as required. So this is the experiment control station. You need one of these for all of your, not all of your experiments, but basically this is what makes the experiments work. And furthermore, we do need some solar panels, which we did bring with us, to provide adequate power to the station and any experiments that we will subsequently place. EVA report and a surface sample. I love the little interaction animations with the control station as well. Of course, I think we did bring a second solar panel for this because we want this to be somewhat symmetrical. I'm not doing a very good job though, am I? So we'll place that down eventually. Lovely. And that will eventually deploy, as you can see. Just interact with that, make sure the solar panel is doing its job, which it is. Now we also need a communitron station, basically the antenna that allows this thing to speak with Kerbin and the Space Center. And that's all done. Wonderful. I think it only has a range of, what is it, 150 kilometers. So I don't know if where we've put it has a direct line of communication with the Space Center. However, worst case, of course, we do have some satellites in low Kerbin orbits, which will be able to bounce that signal. So here we go, Mystery Goo observation unit, and that will be passively generating science. Even though it might not be much, I think this is firstly, once again, it does passively generate science, barely any, but it's a nice little, let's call it a training exercise for our crew, because of course now that we've figured out how to do this, it won't be the only time we do. Now we have a little ionographer, I think that's how you say ionographer, but because we're in an atmosphere, it turns out that's not doing anything, nor can we actually make it work. And I'm only saying that now because, of course, I didn't know what this was or how it worked at the time. So, unfortunately, we will just have to leave that there. As you can see, it's not doing anything. It's not going to do anything. But once again, you know, this is why we're doing this. Lessons learned, and of course, it's free science either way, isn't it? So, here we go then. Now, what have we got here then? This is our weather analyzer with its cool little wind thing at the top. Interact with that. You can interact with that. That's cool. Once again, just seeing if there's anything that I can do with the ionographer. I don't think there is. If I'm doing something wrong with this thing, other than obviously deploying it in an atmosphere, please can you guys let me know in the comments below, because I am clueless. Maybe it's one of those things that only works in space, maybe on the moon or planets without atmospheres. It might just be that simple, but you know, I'm ranting. It is what it is. We have a few more bits, of course, that we need to deploy. So once again, let's just move our Kerbals out of the way because they're where I want to put the next thing. Here we go. Oh, almost there. I believe this is a some kind of monitor. I think it's a seismometer. Yes, seismometer. Here we go. And ultimately, that little thing will deploy into the ground and will be able to let us know all the seismic bits and bobs that might be going on in the poles. Wonderful. So that experiment is deployed. Now let's put a few more solar panels, because I'm not sure we have enough to actually keep this whole site powered. So here we go. We have 4 solar panels, lots of experiments. We have a Communitron, of course, and the control station. And having a look at this, I think we are okay. Now, there's one last thing we need to do. We haven't done this yet, and Science Alert has been telling us we need to do it since episode 1, being the EVA surface experiments. Or science experiments, even. Only worth 7.5 science, but of course, it gets out of the way, and Science Alert is finally telling us that there are no available experiments on Kerbin's surface, or at least from the pole. So let's get Lido back in. Wonderful. We're going to transfer her back into the Mark 1 crew cabin. Same goes for not Ivanka, she needs to get in last as she belongs in the cockpit. As Albert T. Finkelbottom can climb back in. Eventually, there we go, we transfer him to the Mark 1 crew cabin. And last but not least, Ivanka, our pilot. She could just stay in the cockpit. Last but not least, of course, just making sure that everything is working as expected, which it is. And I believe we're okay to leave this site working remotely. So far, so good. And climb a ladder, Ivanka, please. Thank you. And boards. And of course, we can collect all our experiments we've got so far. Little screenshot. Even though the flag's the wrong way round, it's very Kerbal. And recover. Wonderful. So 33 science points earned, taking us up to a modest 703. And our crew is ready for the next assignment. We also have some ribbons, being firstly Ivanka has Research 1, Kerbin Surface EVA, and the first North Polar Lander ribbon. Lido has the Research 4 ribbon, the first North Polar Lander ribbon, and the G-Force 8 ribbon. Albert T, first flag on Kerbin, lovely. First North Polar Lander, and the G-Force 8 ribbon, wonderful. Now we are coming up to the end of today's episode, ladies and gents, so of course add a Kerbal in the comments in their profession if you want me to add them. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Kerbal Space Program and related content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.